Hey everybody, this is Jorge from the Big Band Podcast. I'm here today with Shawn Parr, CEO of Bulldog Drummond, an innovation consultancy based in San Diego, California, where they practice the art of uncommon sense. I like that last one. Hey Shawn, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you, Jorge?
I'm pretty good. So today we'll be discussing the leadership and culture. So, Shawn, why leadership and culture? Why are you guys? Because we can see you on Twitter posting stuff with the hashtag uncommon sense. So why are you guys so interested in leadership and culture?
I think there are two key components of driving change, driving meaningful change. Culture being the environment in which people succeed or fail. Culture being, the influence to, the way people think and the way people feel about what they do every day. And, obviously leadership, setting an example, setting a vision and, guiding a culture and, being responsible for the overall direction of a business, a company, a team, a country. So I think two subjects that are incredibly important for business, but obviously, as we're seeing play out globally now, important as it relates to, groups of people functioning together.
Yeah. It's very common. Usually when startups, and I've been a part of 5 startups myself, and my experience has been that if you don't set the culture from the beginning, you never set it, because it's very hard, right? Once you get started. So, how do you shape culture from the beginning?
Well, I think it's one of those subjects that gets misunderstood, and culture, oftentimes is viewed as energy, or it's viewed as, free food at lunch. You're seeing in a lot of startups, the campus, you're seeing, investment in gyms, investment in, chefs and restaurants. And that's definitely, a sort of feeder of culture. But from our perspective, it's driven by, why you exist as a company. So clarity around why you exist and what it is you're trying to do in the world, and then the values or the the behavioral principles or the beliefs that actually drive the organization. And that way, culture can become this very clear connective tissue. So it's driven by purpose, and it's driven by values. So I think that's how you set it to start with, and then I think you constantly communicate, emphasize, and demonstrate those things on a daily, weekly basis, and then culture fuels itself.
And how do you maintain? It through hiring it? Because that's another big topic. How do you hire? Do you hire for cultural fit? Do you hire for, something else?
I think if you take it down to basic sort of human relational psychology, the chemistry and the compatibility of people is, from a company standpoint, I think is you hire for competency, or historically we've hired for competency. And I think hiring for chemistry, shared values, and the shared interest in what a company's trying to pursue, I think that equation helps to ensure that new people joining the team at least are culturally aligned. And then I think it's really important on a regular basis to clearly communicate and demonstrate the values, and demonstrate sort of pursuit after the purpose, showing how and why and where you are on that journey.
Okay. Now, is culture something that is managed, or is that something that you can just, you know, as you were saying, kind of like design by behavior?
Well, you know, I'd like to say it's a very careful choice of words, but I think
Yeah.
nurtured is a much more emotionally charged word than managed. I think managed implies, you know, top down.
Yeah.
But something that's not managed implies, you know, chaotic or spontaneous. And I think you nurture a culture by by having clear values and leading and operating with those values in every facet of the way a company operates. So I think training and nurturing are really, really important.
Okay. And how do you nurture? Is that something you know, there's mechanisms for that, or is that just implied in the daily behaviors?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as you know, leaders in an organization, people that are responsible for the well-being and the, you know, the results of a team, I think, you know, nurturing comes from one, you know, you mirror the values, you mirror the behaviors that, you know, are embedded in the business and in the brand. And then I think you use opportunities where people aren't leading with their values, that they aren't, you know, in line or engaged with the organization's purpose. You use those as learning opportunities. So you nurture through teaching. You learn. You nurture through you know, sort of regular resets with a team.
Okay. Now, what do leaders get wrong about the culture?
You know, I think you can break that into a series of you know, stage of company. So you can be disconnected from your team. You know, a leader can be operating at such a high strategic level they've actually lost touch with the business on a daily basis, and meaning, you know, the way that people are and departments and teams are functioning. I think leaders can get disconnected from the consumer that they serve, or the constituents that the business is intended to serve. So I think leaders go awry when they're not connected to the stakeholders that they actually serve. So I think, you know, a key principle of good leadership is being in service of others. And I think to be in service of others, you actually have to be connected to the people that you serve, which is difficult. You know, you run a company with 1 million people. How do you stay connected? So you set up, you know, a framework by which, you know, you're regularly plugged into the sort of the cultural, you know, temperature, if you like, of the organization, you know, through a very strong, you know, human people development and HR function, for example. Okay. But I think, you know, I mean, I think in summary, I would say leadership that's out of touch is where, you know, leaders sort of go astray as it relates to culture.
Very good. Now, what I mean, if there are any, you know, if you can define these, what are the key components of a strong culture?
You know, I think again, the foundation is purpose and values, purpose and principles. And I think the measure of a healthy culture is, you know, if you look at engagement, you know, as a method of measuring a culture, it's, you know, the satisfaction, the feeling that, you know, as an employee, you know, my goals, my aspirations are being managed. I think you can judge a culture based on the connectivity to results, and both on an individual, departmental, and a company level. So I think it's if you take the emotional and the rational side of the way we behave as humans, I think you can measure culture the same way, split it emotionally and rationally. How I feel and then what I accomplish, how we feel as an organization, but what we accomplish together as an organization.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Now, because we're talking about culture internally, but from the outside, when customers have contact with the business, how do they know that there is this, how do they feel that strong culture? How does that, touch them, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you look at, you get on an American Airlines flight versus a Southwest Airlines flight or a Virgin America flight or an Alaska Airlines flight, and you bump into, a healthy or a disenfranchised culture, instantly. So, service-based organizations, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a hotel, whether you're an airline, whether you're a hospital, you can feel culture you can feel the manifestation of a good and healthy culture versus one that's, there's no priority placed on, the human connectivity of an organization. So you see it in service, you see it in, willingness to go above and beyond. You see it in the literal expression of what a company's trying to do. So if you think about Southwest Airlines and their notion of freedom to fly and, if you think about the heart that's at the bottom of their planes today, and then you measure that against the way their flight attendants operate, the way their crew, basically go out of their way to do anything, and then the way they operate versus, get onto an American Airlines flight and sit in the, the middle of the plane and feel that experience. The difference between Walmart and, let's say, Target, what that customer experience feels like in terms of working with people.
Yeah. And they're all, they're all different because, one of the things they, is talked about a lot is kind of copying other cultures. But they're all different. Virgin is different from Southwest, some, in their own way. But at the fundamental level, they all understand that it's an emotional component towards a customer. Is there, you mentioned those. Is there other key examples that you like to point out that have great culture?
Yeah, just addressing one of your points there, I think, the reason those companies have a different manifestation of their culture is because what they get up every day to do is slightly different. Their purpose is defined differently, and that drives culture. That's why you see a difference between a Southwest and a Virgin. But I think from in the great culture space, I think you can look at, and they're overused examples, but you can look at the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons in the hotel space, or equally, at a different price point, you can look at Hampton and how their culture is expressed and communicated. I think if you look at, a fascinating study in how to nurture a culture that is, expressed all the way through the customer experience. You can look at Perch in the retail space, in the kitchen, bathroom, outdoor space. So, I think what's really interesting is to build a culture of people that are not only fans of the business that they work for, but they feel fully vested and want to get up every day to enhance the experience, both from an employee and a customer standpoint. It takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of investment, and it takes leadership that understands how people function, and that, that profitability is an absolute benefit and byproduct of actually mobilizing, engaging, and treating people the right way. And it's the equation to do that is, it's not formulaic. There's an equation to it, but it takes that leadership. It takes leaders to be really emotionally engaged.
Okay. Now, in your experience, I mean, I don't like stereotyping, but the younger generation, let's say the millennial generation and down, how does that generation change culture from your experience?
I think there's a lot of stereotyping as it relates to millennials. And I think, what we hear often is, entitled, attention deficit disorder. I mean, you hear the negatives versus, millennials are actually industrious. They're highly engaged. They have high expectations for, an organization and their own selves. But the reality is millennials are no different from X's or boomers in that they are, you get groups, but they are individuals. And the benefit is that they're technology literate. Technology is an extension of themselves. So they're highly fluid, highly flexible. Purpose and making a difference in the world is a strong component of that generation. And, the need for flexibility, i.e., working in various forms and formats. So what I would say is there's a high degree of adaptability in the millennial generation, and understanding how to engage them with values that are meaningful and purpose that's directional is sort of key to, unlocking their full potential.
Very good.
So, they expect clarity. They expect to know, what's in it for them, but the difference that they can make by being engaged. And then, again, back to my foundational underpinnings, purpose and principles or values that they can relate to are going to engage that group.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does go kind of taking that forward? How does technology change the way we define and nurture culture? In this case, collaboration, collaborative technology inside the organizations. All these things that are transforming the way we communicate, not just outside of the business.
I think you have transparency, and I think you have efficiency. I think they're the two principal drivers, if you like, of technology. They create the ability to various forms of technology, no matter what it is, or no matter what the app or the platform is, drives efficiency and the ability to instantly communicate. So I think it demands that from a cultural health perspective, you're on your game. Again, you're living and you're practicing and you're using your values in a very consistent, authentic way. And you have the ability to share things that are going well and you're challenged with. So I think they only help to nurture culture. I think the only downside is that if people are intent on being disruptive then technology accelerates their ability to be disruptive. But on the flip side, technology is, helps you accelerate all the things that are great about a culture too.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, what are the signals that it's time to change culture?
So obviously the leading indicators of a business, I mean, how you measure the actual performance of the business from a, revenues are an indicator, the employee engagement, employee satisfaction, the general energy of the business, the culture. I think they're leading indicators, and I suppose from a human perspective, the number of people walking out the door looking to do something different. I mean, that's the number one. That's going to give you a key idea as to something, tenure, and the number of people saying, "Hey, this isn't for me."
Oh my God. Now, how does Bulldog Drummond practice culture? What does it feel like?
I mean, I think that again, being consistent with what I said from the very beginning, we get up. I get up every day. The organization exists to unlock the potential in people and brands, people and companies. So our orientation to do that is, to be in service of others, to be listening, to have a high degree of sort of hospitality and engagement. And, I think we look at our culture, we're a relatively small team, but, you can measure it by, the level of connectivity amongst the teams, the joy and satisfaction in the work that's being done on a daily basis. You can measure it by the relationships that we have with the people that we serve on the outside. The evolving progress and thinking of the work that we do. And, the lives that people, lead as a result of the work that they do here, how what they do here every day impacts their family and their friends and society on a whole. What are people doing in the world outside of Bulldog? So they're all, they all constitute for me, measures of, how we're doing from a culture perspective.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, just to finish, where did common sense come from? How do you arrive to that? I don't know, your motto or operational model.
Well, I mean, I think you put more than 3 people together and things can get highly complicated, or they can, 3 people can change the world, or, change a corner of the world. And, I think when you cut through all the pretense and you use common sense, invariably you can solve any problem, however complicated. If you stay grounded in truth, if you have good communication, you're candid with each other, you're caring. I mean, basic principles of, common sense, it's uncommon in business. And, if you think about how complicated, systems and teams can become, that's something that we try to drive to is let's keep things as uncomplicated as possible. And let's use common sense to solve challenges. That's pretty much where it comes from.
That's cool. All right. So how can my audience, find on Bulldog Drummond?
So bulldogdrummond.com is where you'll find us, and we've got a blog that we populate on a regular basis with insights from both our team and from a phenomenal collection of guest contributors. And yeah, that's where you find us.
All right. Okay, Shawn. So thanks so much for your time and for your insight, and thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having, and have a fabulous rest of the day there.
You too. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Take care. See you.
Bye.